Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. Bienvenue à l'Ambassade du Canada. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, both in person and, as I understand it, we have some friends who are watching us online. So welcome, everyone. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to the 19th annual Seymour Martin Lipset Lecture on Democracy in the World. We're very pleased to be partnering again with the National Endowment for Democracy to host this lecture. This lecture, for those of you who may not know, was inaugurated in 2004 by the National Endowment for Democracy and the Munk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. And it's a forum for discourse on democracy and its progress worldwide. So very pertinent, let's say, these days. Over the last 19 years, the Lipset Lecture has featured a number of fascinating and very distinguished speakers, and of course, tonight is no exception. We are thrilled to have Anne Applebaum, speaking to us tonight on Autocracy, Inc., how the world's authoritarians work together. And welcome back to the embassy. You have many fans here among our team, most certainly, and of course, among the guests that are here tonight. We're all eager to hear from you. And the topic, I think, could not be more relevant. You know, every day here in Washington, in Ottawa, in the halls of this embassy, in many halls around this city, we are grappling together as governments and those who are working hard in this area on how we as democracies can and how we should work together in the face of the growing influence of anti-democratic forces. And so I think contemplating the flip side of that question, how authoritarians work together, is essential for an effective response. Threats to our democracy are growing, of course, from the world's autocracies, but also from within our own societies, as we well know. And the institutions that underpin our democracies are being tested. As the last few years have shown, even societies that have established democracies can reverse directions. So I think that, we must approach these discussions with honesty and no small amount of humility. We are working hard to shore up our democratic institutions. Canada, in particular, has placed specific emphasis in recent years on media freedom and countering disinformation as priorities for our government. We're chairing the Media Freedom Coalition, which is a coalition of 51 countries working together to advance media freedom at home and abroad. And we are just completing our chairmanship of the Freedom Online Coalition, and we look forward to passing that chairmanship along to the United States in 2023. We're also doing a lot of very interesting things within the context of the G7. Among them is the rapid response mechanism to counter disinformation. They're just a few examples of efforts that we are doing together, alone as governments and with people like you who are very deeply interested and invested in this topic. So thank you all for being here for this vital discussion. And thank you, Anne, for your very important contribution. I'd like to now hand over the podium to Damon Wilson, the President and CEO of the National Endowment for Democracy. Damon.
Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador Hillman, for those kind remarks, and more importantly, for welcoming us back into your beautiful home, into the embassy here. We're honored to be here at this remarkable institution. Canada is itself, as we just heard from the ambassador, it's a remarkable example of a champion of democracy around the world, and we're privileged to have you as a partner in this lecture. I do want to give a thank you and extend a thank you to your team, who's been just terrific partners at the embassy and helping to plan for tonight's event and working with us on many issues. And as the ambassador said, this is the 19th annual Seymour Martin Lipset Lecture on Democracy in the World. And it grew out of a way the endowment likes to operate, through partnerships, a partnership between our International Forum for Democratic Studies, Mark Plattner is here, the forum at the endowment with the Munk School for Global Affairs at the University of Toronto, and we're proud of sustaining that partnership. The embassy has been a gracious host of this since the beginning of the lecture series, and it's a true honor since a pandemic to be back here in this venue for this event. I do want to give a welcome to those that are joining us online around the world. We had, Anne, you will be pleased, we had an extremely rapid RSVP response when we announced this lecture with Anne Applebaum. And so we have many, many guests who are following online and will be watching this around the world. We welcome you as well. I want to recognize as well some of the leadership of the endowment from our board that's with us. Our chairman, Ken Wallach, is joining us. Our vice chair, we have Representative Peter Roscom, who's with us in the House with his wife. Longtime NED veteran and now board member Mark Plattner, who's here with his wife as well. And of course, our founding president, Carl Gershman, and his wife, Lori, who are with us. And we're also privileged to be joined by someone who's not only a former NED board member, but also a former Lipset lecturer, and Bill Galston. Welcome again to the lecture. I want to recognize the other partners, the other sponsors in the lecture. In addition to the Canadian Embassy, the Johns Hopkins University Press, the Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University have been terrific partners. And finally, this evening, we like to talk about NED and a NED family. And tonight, we're really delighted to welcome Anne's family. I think Harvey, Betsy, Kathy, if they're here with us, we welcome you and we're delighted to have you with us this evening. So this annual lecture, it honors Seymour Martin Lipset, one of the most renowned democracy scholars and public intellectuals in the 20th century. Chris Walker will say a little bit more about his legacy. Seymour Lipset's widow, Sidney Lipset, is with us in attendance. Sidney, who served as an editor at American Purpose, has been a great friend to the endowment, has welcomed me warmly into my role here, and provides invaluable support to this lecture every year. But as Sidney well knows, and many of you who are familiar with the endowment know, the endowment isn't about just projects and grants. The endowment is about relationships of trust and confidence around compelling ideas. And when you think about our evolution, our founding of an institution, the relationships between Carl Gershman, Mark Plattner, Larry Diamond, Barbara Haig, those who were so central to the formation of the endowment, and their personal relationships with Marty, with your husband, so that his ideas, his views helped infuse the concept and the very being of the endowment itself. And that's a legacy that many of us who are here and those who are with the endowment today, we cherish. And seeing this lecture as a living legacy, it's an important moment for that community, that commitment to relationships. But as the ambassador said, we're also here for a purpose. We've got work to do. This lecture is designed to carve out time in our annual calendar to reflect, to invite someone to think a little bit deeper on the challenges and opportunities to democracy today. And we need clear thinking now more than ever. We're going to hear shortly from the brilliant Anne Applebaum, who's been able to identify the complex interrelationships that have made democracy feel like it's on its back foot. And you know, just from following the news every day, that this is a consequential moment for democracy and freedom around the world. For me, I've had the honor of being at the endowment, maybe it's 16 months now. Anne's thinking has been central to my own thinking at NED. As the staff team well knows, her article, "The Bad Guys Are Winning," is one of the things we began our conversations with inside the endowment to underscore that we had to appreciate that, yes, the bad guys are working together. Will Dobson, our moderator tonight from the Journal of Democracy, wrote the book, The Dictator's Learning Curve. And today, we see that manifest in a particularly pernicious way. Russian invasion of Ukraine, using Iranian drones, getting ammunition from North Korea, with Lavrov off to Nicaragua. And yet we also see something extraordinary happening right now, which I hope we'll talk about. People across China raising in protests zero COVID. Iranians of all stripes doing incredibly courageous protests across the country. Ukrainians successfully resisting a Russian invasion. More protests in Cuba over the past few months. In a remarkable way, we've had more Cubans arrive in this country than during the Mariel boat lift. And yet it's not enough. And I think that's what we're going to hear a little bit from Anne tonight. The challenge for us, our community, those that care about this, we need to raise our game. We need to learn together. We need to work in common cause. And so that's what tonight is about. It's about us to learn more effectively because the cause of freedom and democracy matters.